Hey, herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Episode unserer bahnbrechenden 1123-Serie. Heute machen wir was Besonderes, weil wir linken uns rein in unsere Leben- und Leiterschaft-Inputs. Ich habe einen Input gemacht in unserem Team-Meeting über emotionale Intelligenz und die Millionenschaft unserer Zuschauer hat danach gefragt, ob sie ihn auch sehen dürfen. Deswegen stellen wir den als Leben und Leiterschaft online auf unseren YouTube-Channel und als 1123 linken wir uns heute da rein und schauen den gemeinsam an. Ich hoffe, er hilft dir. Und dann nächste Woche um 11.23 Uhr pünktlich sind wir wieder zurück mit 11.23 und es wird eine ganz besondere Episode werden nächste Woche. Die willst du nicht verpassen. Von daher viel Spaß bei der emotionalen Intelligenz. Ich hoffe, du wirst emotional intelligenter und ja, hab einen guten Tag. Wir sehen uns. Everything that happens on the inside of you will determine a lot of the outcome of your life. Then Pastor Brian started talking about revival. And if you remember, we had this Vision Sunday video and I spoke on that a little. And one of the things that I said is revival doesn't start out there. Revival starts in here. And so it's a lot about what happens on the inside of you. So what I want to talk about a little bit, and I'm not sure, I'm going to sit down just so I don't preach, so I talk. I'm not sure how long I'm going to sit, but I'll try. But I want to talk about something, and hopefully we'll talk about it the next few weeks whenever I speak here, is something called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. And what I'm going to do is, if that's okay with you guys, just going to share a little bit from my story and from things that I have learned over the last years, but probably in particular the last year or half year to a year. Just a few things that have come to my attention, and just want to share, because I honestly believe we can all learn, and if we're healthy on the inside, we can actually build a healthy church on the outside. A little disclaimer, just up front, okay, for any experts in the room, I am not a psychologist. Okay, so I might not be using the correct terms. I might not be using the correct language. I don't even know. Okay, I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not an expert. I do not claim that I have figured it all out and I know it all. I don't. But I've got some experience, okay? We've been leading the church for 15 years now, okay? I've been married for 16 years. I've got 3 daughters. We've got amazing, so I've got 3 daughters. I'm an expert on emotions, okay? Just that alone qualifies me to talk about this, okay? So if you look for a title, don't look for a title in my name. I've got 3 daughters. I can talk about this, all right? Anyone who's got more than 2 women in his life knows what that means. It's a blessing beyond measure. Emotional intelligence, emotions and leadership. You know, your strength as a leader, your longevity as a leader, and your maturity as a leader is determined by your emotional intelligence. How strong you are, how long and how far you will go, and how mature you are is determined by the way you deal with your emotions. Is how intelligent you are with your emotions. One of the things that I have learned painfully over the last year, that I have been very, very bad at dealing with my emotions. In fact, I've been completely incapable of dealing with my emotions. I didn't really know what emotions are. I didn't even know how to express them. I didn't even know what they do. I felt something, but I didn't know what it was. You know that feeling sometimes? You feel something on the inside, but you've got no clue what's going on? Yeah, that was me. The problem is, leadership is a very emotional thing. Especially church leadership. It is a very emotional thing because we are all in heart and soul. Right? We talk about this even. We're heart and soul. Well, what's the heart and soul? The heart and the soul is the inside, and everything that goes on the inside of you, we all give our best. We all give our lives. We all give everything that we have into this church, into God's house, because we're called for this. We're family. It's not just a hobby for us. You wouldn't be here on a Wednesday morning if this was just a hobby. No, you're here because this is your heart. This is your life. Which means it's a very emotional thing. And leading people, whether you like it or not, you are going to be confronted with a lot of emotions, positive and negative, in others and in yourself. So therefore, it actually is crucial that we learn how to deal with our emotions in leadership. If you take responsibility, if you start leading people, there's going to be pressures, there's going to be joys, there's going to be disappointments, there's going to be pain, there's going to be all of that stuff coming your way, whether you like it or not. And how well you deal with that will determine how well it will be with your soul and how far you will go. So I wanted to start, and is that okay if I just share? I wanted to start with 3 statements that are true, but also can be very devastating. 3 statements that are absolutely true and that I have preached numerous times and still believe 100% that they are true, but if interpreted the wrong way or handled the wrong way, can be absolutely devastating to your soul and to your life and to your leadership, to your family, to your relationships, basically to everything around you. So it's important that we get that right. So here's the first statement that you have heard me say, and I really believe it's true, but we need to do it correctly. And I mentioned it a little bit on Sunday. Here's the first one, is guard your heart. Guard your heart. We've all heard it, and it's true, we need to guard our hearts. But if we're not careful, that whole thing about guarding your heart is more about not letting anything in anymore instead of not letting anything stick. There's a big difference between not letting anything in, but letting it in, but then making sure nothing sticks that's not supposed to stick. See, what I did over years, by under the big banner of guarding my heart, I just didn't allow anything to come into my heart anymore. Because I just thought, this is bad stuff. It shouldn't affect me. It shouldn't come into my heart. I shouldn't feel this. This shouldn't be there. So what I did is I just built up a wall. A big emotional wall that didn't allow anything to go in there because I needed to guard my heart. But guarding is not about keeping things out. Guarding is about making sure that the things that come in are dealt with correctly. It is so important that you don't just build up an emotional wall. Ask Joanna, we would see something on Instagram, we would see something on the news, something devastating or something sad, and my first emotion or my first reaction would always be switch it off. I would switch it off. I would tell Joanna she was going to show me like a sad video about something, and I just said, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see it. I don't even want to see it. Because I didn't want to be confronted with that emotion. I didn't want to be confronted with anything bad, all under the holy statement of, I'm going to guard my heart, people. I'm guarding my heart. You got to be really, really careful. Guarding your heart does not mean not letting anything in. What makes your heart your heart and what makes your heart healthy is that you let stuff in, that you've got an open heart, that you've got a soft heart, not a heart of stone, not a wall around your heart, but a soft heart. But then you got to make sure that once something is in your heart, that you deal with it, okay? And we will be talking about that in the future a bit more, how to actually effectively deal with things. So guard your heart. Just make sure it's not about not letting anything in, but more about not letting anything stick that's not supposed to stick. The second statement is that we always say, and I've said this many times, and I still believe it, and it's a great statement, is don't be led by your emotions. Don't be led by your emotions. We can all say true. Yes, we shouldn't be led by our emotions. But if we're not careful, we take that statement and we simply don't allow emotions anymore. Because now we think emotions are a bad thing. I shouldn't be affected by this. I shouldn't be sad about this. I shouldn't be grieving about this. I shouldn't be offended by this. I shouldn't feel like this. And all of a sudden, instead of saying, yes, I'm feeling it, I'm just not letting that feeling determine what I do, emotions as a whole all of a sudden become a negative thing. And the thing is, if we're not careful, if you are ignoring your emotions constantly, slowly there will be a level of frustration that builds up. Because emotions are part of who you are. They're there. But if emotions become something negative and you simply don't allow emotions, you don't allow your heart, you don't allow your mind to process the things that are going on around you. Emotions are positive. Don't be led by your emotions does not mean don't have any emotions. It's a big difference. You know, and I just honestly think we've got to change our language around it. Emotions aren't bad. They're created by God. It's good to have them, okay? You just got to be smart with them. So, number one, guard your heart. It's not about not letting anything in. It's about not letting anything stick. Don't lead by your emotions. It's not about having them, or it's not about not having them. It's not about not allowing them. It's knowing how to deal with them. And the third one that, you know, we would all agree is don't allow negative thinking. Don't allow negative thinking. I was the best at shutting Joanna down on a regular basis if she would say anything just a little bit critical or a little bit maybe negative. I would just go like, no, we don't allow this. We don't talk like this in our house. We don't do this. Because for me, just saying something negative or something critical, for me, it always felt like that's wrong. We shouldn't. We shouldn't think negative. The Bible says, you know, proclaim the good things and negative thoughts. There's no room for negative thoughts. The thing is, we all have them, for goodness sake. You have your negative thoughts. Here's the thing, if you never allow a negative thought, or if you ignore a negative thought, you know what will happen? You will always feel like you're losing. Because you're never actually going to say what you really think. Because you think, I'm not allowed to say what I think. And if you live your life and your relationship and your marriage and leadership from the basis of, I'm never allowed to say what I really think, you always will feel like you're losing. And if you always feel like you're losing, at the end of the day, you're going to be so frustrated because no one likes to lose. If you just put it on a relational level, if you in your marriage, if you never tell your spouse how you really feel, because you feel like, oh, I'm just thinking something negative, I'm not gonna say it, I'm just gonna be quiet about it. The thing is, the thought is still there. And it's still doing something, and you are not allowing to process it. You gotta be able to say, hey, you know what, of course, I'm not talking about, you know, say everything that comes to mind. You know, it is helpful to have some filters. And it is helpful to choose wisely who you share your negative thoughts with, but you have to have a place where you can just go and just let it out. And there's someone who knows you, there's someone who loves you, there's someone who trusts you enough, and you trust them enough to just go, and just because you said something, they're not gonna judge you straight away. But it's so important that you have negative thoughts, and you need to do something with them. Here's what happens. So now, you're hurt, you're disappointed, you're thinking negative, and you've got lots of emotions. Right? But then, you feel like none of that stuff is good. So there's another emotion that's added to that, guilt. You feel completely guilty. I shouldn't be disappointed. I shouldn't be angry with them. I'm a pastor, for goodness sake. I'm preaching forgiveness. I should be leading like I should be, you know, people, you know, cut me up. Jesus was silent as the lamb that was led to the slaughter. So I have to be silent like a lamb. I'm not Jesus, for goodness sake, you know. But honestly, I feel like, you know, what's added to, I'm not letting anything in. You know, I don't think my emotions are, they're wrong, and my thinking is terrible. This guilt and this shame adds on top of all the negative stuff that's already going on. And you know what? It's just not a fun place to be. It is not a fun place to be, because you know what it will do? You will lose your joy very, very quickly. Ministry and all that life that God has got for you, if you don't learn how to deal with your emotions, how to deal with your thought, and how to make sure you let stuff into you, but you don't let it stick, it will rob you of your joy. Everything will become a burden. Everything will be heavy. Everything will be hard work, and everything will feel bad. You will lose your joy. You know what happens once you lose your joy in Christianity? You know what? The first thing that will happen is you will lose your relationship. Because if you feel bad about yourself and bad about the stuff that you've been thinking and that you've been feeling, the last place you really want to go to is God. Because he's going to make you feel even worse. Not because he wants to, but because that's what you think. And then you pick up your Bible and you read a verse, and instead of being encouraged by that verse, you feel even more guilty by the verse. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Come on. Do you know those mornings when you feel like everything sucks, and then you just go, God, give me a good scripture, and then you open the scripture and it talks about, I don't know, him destroying a city or something going on, and you just go, great, thank you. It's like, I already felt bad, now I feel even worse, you know? But you gotta be so careful. If you don't deal with this properly, you lose your joy, you lose your relationship, and you start drifting. You start drifting. And you start asking yourself the question, I wonder if this whole God thing actually is true. Like, I wonder if this actually works. I wonder if this is actually, like, I'm supposed to be a pastor, but does it really make sense? Does it make sense that I'm a pastor? Because I look at my congregation and I feel like there's a lot of people in there that have a much better relationship with Jesus than I do right now. But hey, you know, not right now, but I'm hopefully have a much better relationship with Jesus than all of you, because I'm your pastor and that's just what I do, right? Right? Well, here's the thing, you know, we laugh at this, but somewhere in there, we actually think it. We should be better. And we just gotta make sure that we don't allow those statements, if we handle them wrong, to bring us to a place. All of those emotions, plus you feel bad about having those emotions, it leaves you in a terrible place, all right? So let me just say this. Number one, unavoidable facts. You have emotions. Okay? They are a part of who you are, and that's not a bad thing. You actually have emotions, and I will talk about that a little bit more, about what your emotional needs are, and about figuring out how to read your emotions. And then once you have read an emotion, what to do with it, not today, but I will talk about that. Things that I have learned through sessions with great people. But what we have to understand is God has created us as emotional beings. God has created emotions. Therefore, they must be good. Emotions help us to bond, to connect with people. They help us to have empathy, to feel for people. Like, emotions are, you know, they are the glue that really holds us together. You can't have fellowship, true fellowship, without emotions. You can't have true relationships without emotions. It just doesn't work that way. And the thing is, what we've been trying to do, especially I feel like in Germany, is we've been trying to take emotions out of faith. Because we think once we put emotions in faith, it's dangerous. But it's like taking emotions out of marriage. What do you end up with? A couple that lives together, but there's no real connection. You know all the theory about, you know your partner, you know them well, you know all the theory, but there's no connection. Emotions are absolutely necessary. It's important for you to have emotions. You will have them. You know, we're not robots. God did not create us to be robots, but to be human beings in relationship with each other. You have emotions, and it is important for you to allow your emotions to come to the surface. And the second thing, which is a fact also, is you have thoughts. You are a thinking being. You think all day, and you have lots of good thoughts, and you have lots of bad thoughts, and that's okay to start with. You are quite normal. You know, if you today, what time is it now? It's 10 past 10. If today, by 10 past 10, you haven't at least had one sinful thought, or one negative thought, or one bad stuff that just went on in your head, you are not normal. Or you have died and you're in heaven, but you're still here. So I guess, you know, isn't it interesting? Isn't it? Like, sometimes I wonder, what would happen if everything that we would think, we would speak out loud straight away? Okay, let's just move on. But, you know, I love what Eli Ursache said at the Kingdom Builders thing. He talked about imagination. Imagination, that's an ability that only human beings have. We can imagine things. We can think about ourselves. We can think about our purpose. I mean, no one else. I mean, a fox does not think about his purpose. You know? Well, yeah, Lysander does and Nastasia, but a real fox, you know? like, you know, or a bird doesn't sit. You know, this morning I had lots of bird tweeting and it was beautiful. I walked the dog and it was awesome. But those birds weren't thinking they're tweeting and thinking about themselves. And, you know, I wonder what God will bring my way today. You know, I wonder. None of that. But we do. We have the ability to think. We have the ability to have an imagination. And that is a good thing. But it comes with positive and negative. Depression is just a way, and Eli said it, and I love that thought, it's just our imagination put in the wrong direction. Because if you're depressed, you're thinking all the bad stuff. You're thinking all the negative things. You're thinking all that stuff that could potentially happen or that will never happen. But we just got to understand, okay, we have emotions and we have thoughts. The question is not, do I have them? The question is, what am I going to do with them? Okay? And I'm just going to leave you with four first little steps, maybe, that will probably help you, hopefully help you, or make you think. Let's put it this way. Today, my goal was more to bring in awareness and to make you think about what's happening on the inside. Because if you want to be healthy, right? Revival starts in here, with your emotions and with your thoughts. So here's the first thing. Dealing with them and not ignoring them. Here's the first one. Accept the fact that these feelings and thoughts are there. You just got to accept that they are there. Awareness is the first key to change, as always. You know, you're like an iceberg. You're like an emotional iceberg. There's only very little over the surface that you see and that people see, and there is a lot underneath the surface. And most of us have no idea what goes on the inside because we never take the time to deal with it. But eventually, those emotions that are on the inside of you, eventually they will find a way out. They will find a way out. This picture that I've been given, which I like, it's a great picture. It's of Play-Doh. Do you know Play-Doh? If you have little kids, you know them. And there is these things that are like, you know, you can make those shapes. You put it in like in a cylinder, and you press down the Play-Doh, and it squeezes out at the bottom, right? You know that? Here's the thing. Your emotions work like that. You store up your emotions on the inside, right? In your, I don't know the proper word, but it's not the part, not the frontal core, but the ecdymina, whatever it's called. You know that. Yeah, that's the one, exactly. That's the one. It's your subconscious. Listen, subconsciously, there's emotions, and they build up, they build up, they build up. If you never deal with them, they will stay there. Eventually, it's too full, and eventually, those emotions, they will find their way out somehow. And it's interesting, according to your personality, according to your strengths and weaknesses, it will be shown. Your emotions will, like addictions. What are addictions? Addictions are just a way of undealt emotions that are some coping mechanisms. Everyone has got different coping mechanisms. If you don't deal with them purposefully, they will come out unpurposefully. If you don't deal with your emotions that are there, if you don't dig deep and figure out what's there and actually proactively, in a healthy way, meet your emotional needs, they will find their own way of meeting their needs, and you won't be able to control them, and it will be very unhealthy. Addictions are the ideal thing, unhealthy habits, all of that stuff. And trust me, I have over the last 15 years developed so many unhealthy habits and so many things that I didn't even know were there. And what they were doing is they were dealing with my emotions that I didn't deal with myself, but they need to be dealt with. So you need to dig deep and figure out, okay, what's on the inside with you? And that's to do with emotional needs. You got to know what your emotional needs are. And once you know what they are, you have to put things in your life where your emotional needs are actively met in an appropriate way. If your emotional needs are not met in an appropriate way that is healthy and will build your life, they will find their own way out, most likely in a very unhealthy way. So you gotta figure out what's on the inside of you. You gotta know, I feel this right now. Okay, so don't just push it away. Don't just not let it in. Okay, that's not what guarding your heart is. That's not what it's about. It's recognizing, okay, there is something going on, all right? That's the first one. Accept that you have these feelings. Accept that you have these emotions. Accept that you have these thoughts. The second thing, instead of just pushing them away, ask the question, why am I feeling this way? It is a very good question to ask. You know, the thing is, if you push everything away, if you literally push everything away, you will never come to the place where you ask yourself the question, I wonder why I'm feeling this. And if you never ask yourself the question, why am I feeling this, you will never come to the bottom, and you will never create a healthy core and a healthy insight. Why am I feeling that way? Okay? Take the time. So you have a conversation with your wife, and you feel rejected, right? This is what I would do. I would just shut up. And I think in psychological terms, it's called passive-aggressive. Or passively aggressive. That's what I was. I would just stop talking. I just don't say anything, and I keep it in here, and I just punish everyone with silence. Because somehow, I'm not supposed to say something bad. I'm not supposed to say something critical. So I'm gonna be silent, and I'm not gonna say anything. But you know, I think a lot of things right now, you know. But I'm just not gonna say them. You know, and here's the thing, like that happens in relationship, in marriage, that happens in leadership. Not a good place to be. Literally, you gotta ask yourself, okay, now we had a conversation, I feel rejected. Instead of pushing it away, ask the question, why? Like, why do I feel rejected? What has just happened? What makes me feel like why? And it's interesting, once you ask the question, it takes time. You won't straight away find the answer. It takes time to figure out in your head and in your heart what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. But you gotta ask the question. Start an emotional diary. That's one thing that I've learned and that I started doing a little bit is I started an emotional diary. So I just started because I had no clue what my emotions are. I didn't even know what I was feeling. I mean, ask Joanna. I was an emotional infant. I was like the equivalent of a 2-year-old. You know, I'm either silent or I scream. Rah! You know, like it doesn't help anyone. And it's like okay. And then and she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, I don't know. I just don't know. But something's wrong. Do you ever feel that way? But you just don't know? It's good to just start a note in your iPhone and just start writing down all day long, what is it that you're feeling? Just try to articulate. And the more you try to articulate what you're feeling, I'm not talking about evolving around your emotions. I'm not talking about emotion, like worshiping your emotions or like being lost. That's none of it. No, I'm not talking about that. But you need to learn to articulate what's going on the inside, because only if you can articulate, you can do something with it. You need to understand yourself. If you understand yourself and your emotions, you can actually do something with them. You can then apply. You know, I had the counseling session, and I still have a counseling session once a month with a psychologist, and it's fantastic. We laugh a lot about me. It's true, actually. It is true. You know, we figured out that I'm a very interesting person. And you know, it's always good to combine it with humor, because otherwise you cry, and I don't like crying. I'm not that far down the journey that I can cry. Okay, that's probably in 10 years. But what I was going to talk about? I had a session. What am I talking about right now? Articulating. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, that was such a good story, huh? Emotional diary. Dang it, that was such a good story I was going to tell you about one of my sessions. You would have loved it. Yeah, we laugh a lot, I know, but we laugh about me, but that's okay, anyways. So, I'm just going to carry on. If it comes back, I'll tell you the story, okay? It's a funny story about me. Okay, accept the fact that these feelings and thoughts are there, okay? The second thing is, instead of pushing them away, ask yourself the question, why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? Number 3, I talked about learn to articulate what it is you're feeling, thinking. Be truthful, but open. So I think it's very important that once you learn to articulate, you know, you got to find a safe place where you can articulate them. I wouldn't suggest that you articulate what you feel all the time with everyone, wherever you are. I think it's very important that you find a safe place where you can learn how to articulate the things that you feel. And then, what you need to understand, though, is in all of that your feelings and your emotions are very subjective. Oftentimes, they don't reflect the truth. But subjectively for you, they're true. So you have a bit of a tension going on. So I talked to Joanna, I feel rejected. She probably didn't do a thing, and she doesn't reject me. She loves me. Right? So the truth is probably that she doesn't reject me. The real truth probably is that she loves me. I still feel rejected. So it's still a truth for me. So it's important to communicate and articulate on the basis of knowing, I'm not claiming that this is true, but this is what I feel right now. I just want you to know, right now I feel rejected. This is what's going on the inside of me. I don't know why, and I'm not saying it's true. I'm not necessarily saying what you did led to that, but this is what you said. This is how it made me feel, and what I need is this. It's so important to learn to say, hey, this is what I feel, and this is what I need from you right now. But you need to understand, on the basis, you gotta be open. You gotta be open that your subjective emotion might not be reflective of the truth, okay? Because otherwise you're gonna put out the emotional bulldozer and you're gonna bulldoze down every single person that doesn't think like you, that doesn't feel like you, and that's not helpful, okay? No, not helpful. So, but not saying it is not helpful either. Entering a conversation, it was so amazing. Like, we had one of the greatest blessings that Joanna and I had when we were in South Africa was we had so much time to talk. Because since we were married, we started the church and we had 3 babies and we were really, really busy a lot of the time. So it rarely happened that we would regularly sit down and talk for hours. And not just once a month on a date or once a week on a date, but actually you've got 4 weeks and every day you've got 5 hours with each other or longer, and you just get to talk. It is so interesting, the stuff that comes out, And so I had no idea that's what you were thinking, But it's so important. It's so important to actually communicate what you're feeling, because only then you open yourself up for a relationship, for true relationship. And then you can start to engage with each other and you can start to deal with each other. But you got to find a way of communicating your emotions without putting the other person down, because that's not the goal. The goal is not to be right. The goal is to be one. Okay, you got to write that one down, all right? I just made that up and I think it's a good one. The goal, someone said that once, I think somewhere. Did I say it before? In a message. Oh, well, there you go. I'm a good preacher, aren't I? The goal is not to be right. The goal is to be one. But to be truly one, you got to be able to voice what's going on the inside of you and then find to each other. And that kind of is the 4th point, is be bold and wise in expressing what you're feeling and what you need. But then let go. So the goal of you communicating your emotions isn't necessarily to change someone else's mind, because that's called manipulating. And that's not what we want. So in a relationship and in leadership, you don't want to manipulate people. What they do with what you said, that's up to them. That's completely, all you can do is be truthful about who you are, what you are feeling, be faithful with that, communicate that in an open way, but then the ball is in their court. Don't try and jump across the net and tell them how to throw that ball back to you now. You got to have this element of trust that, you know what, I did what I can do, but now it's up to them. And I think that is so important to learn in life, in relationship, and in leadership. All you can do is be truthful and be honest, say what you feel, but then, God, I did what I can do, now I trust. Now I trust you. Don't be what I used to do, because as I told you, emotionally dysfunctional on a high level. I wouldn't say anything. And what I would do is I would be completely passive with everything. So there'd be something going on that I disagree with. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say a thing. Like, necessarily not downward. No, sometimes that as well. On a peer level, I would probably never say anything. And upwards, leadership-wise, 100% I would not say a thing. I would be completely passive, but I would find the excuse of, I trust God. At the end of the day, God's going to work it out, And here's the thing, I still believe that. I still believe that God's going to work it out. That's not the issue. I'm not going to take matters into my own hand. But if that becomes an excuse to not say what needs to be said, it's actually not helpful. It is not helpful, okay? So what I said is like, okay, I came to the conclusion, I was sharing that with Joanna, that I'm gonna be truthful to articulate and be assertive about what I really think in a positive way, in a good way. but only if God gives me the option to do it. So I said to God, God, if you want me to say something about this to someone, then you make it happen, that I meet that person, that we sit somewhere. But I promise you, God, when I'm sit there and when I have the chance, I will be truthful. That's my conclusion. That's where I'm at right now. It's like, I'm not going to try and force to make it happen. I'm going to trust God to make it happen. But once it's there, I'm not going to be silent. I'm actually going to say what I think. And you know, I trust you. Trust me, this is it's such a freedom. If you can be in a relationship, if you can be part of an organization, if you can be in leadership, and you feel like, I have the freedom to say what I think. I have the freedom to say what I think, and you don't keep that stuff on the inside, you will live a lot freer. So remember, your strength as a leader, your longevity as a leader, and your maturity is determined by your emotional intelligence. So we got to start dealing with the things that are happening on the inside.